Welcome, it's Nuñez-LaMarre with Love Personal Growth, your go-to for embodied healing and spirituality in life, business, and relationships. And today we're going to talk about parts. No, not parts to your vacuum or your computer or your car, but parts to yourself. Parts of you that are working to get your attention. I am a huge proponent and fan of parts. Let me give you a little background here, a little herstory. I like the word herstory instead of history. A little herstory for you is that when I started doing my healing work, I would intuitively speak of myself in parts. And I would say, well, there's this one part of me that feels this way, and there's another part of me that feels this way. I knew that they were different parts. I could discern that I had different parts inside of me that had different feelings. But I didn't have a method or a process to it. As I continued through thousands of hours of healing, of my own doing healing work, going to healing sessions, and also of holistic education, what I realized is that everybody had a similar process. And I talk about this 3-step process in my book, Reclaim Yourself. They would, number one, recognize. So we would see that there is a part. We would become aware that there is a part of us that is coming up for healing. Number two, we would realize, all right, well, what is it that is coming up to be healed? And how do we honor it? And how do we accept it? And then the third part we would release it. And that would be honoring what we need and potentially forgiveness. So these three parts, this process came up in every healing session that I not only held for myself, but also for others. And as I was working through this, I was starting to grasp this concept of parts. And as I was using it, then I noticed more and more other people were using this. And I uncovered or discovered this book called No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz, which is about the IFS model, internal family systems. And I fell in love instantly, because guess what? It's about parts. And it's about how we all have these parts of us, and that there is a self that is within us with a capital S, and that this self is compassionate and kind and caring and courageous and all of these things. And then we have these parts of us that are what he calls protectors and exiles. Now I'm going to leave his definition and his wisdom there. And I'm going to shift now into what I experience and how I teach it and how I understand it. So these parts that are inside of us, I like to imagine as the Frozen movie. So there are these parts inside of us. And if you haven't seen the movie Frozen 2, there's this girl named Elsa, and she goes on this journey to listen to this voice and to follow her heart. And she goes into this glacier. And inside this glacier are images. And they're images, memories from many times over. She also sees these actual snow-built figures of things that happened in the past as well. So what I like to imagine is that our parts are like that. They're memories, they're parts of us that are frozen in time at some point in time. Now here's the kicker. They only have the capacity to react from the place they were frozen. So let's say they were frozen at 6 or at 8 or at 13 or at 17. That's their full capacity. They haven't been able to extend their knowledge and their wisdom beyond that timeline. So if there's times when you react to something and you're like, gosh, why did I do that? How come I always react like that? I don't want to do that anymore. And you get mad at yourself. Have some compassion, because there's a part of you that's maybe 8 and doesn't know how to handle her emotions, or has never been shown how to handle her emotions, or has never even been taught that her emotions matter or are worthy of being acknowledged. And she's freaking out. She wants to be heard. She wants to be seen. So I invite you to shift your perspective and start to recognize different parts of you. Because when we do this and we realize that the parts are not technically us, and what I mean by that, they are not the self with a capital S, the soul, the intuition, whatever you want to call it. when we realize that, we can start to see that there is I'll just call it a disconnect between that part of us and the true self. And all the true self wants to do is to love that part and to bring that part in and to honor that part. That part is reacting to get your attention. It's like a child. It's reacting to get your attention. If it's a teenage child, then it's probably rebelling. And that could happen in like overeating or overspending or speaking out in ways that you don't want to speak out in. So you have to recognize that there's these parts inside of you that are coming up to the surface to be healed. Your job is to heal. That's your job. These parts are smart and they would rather be doing another role. Like that's not what they want to do. So I'm going to give 2 examples. So first I'll talk about the pusher and the people pleaser, because these are 2 very common parts that I have worked with and that I've also helped others through. But for me, the pusher is the one that wants to get things done. She wants to achieve. And I want to be very clear. There's nothing wrong with achieving. I've learned how to honor my pusher, and that's our goal. But the pusher will push you. Let's just stay up 1 more hour. Let's just stay on the computer 5 more minutes. Let's just finish this slide or this presentation or this project. It's always something more. She's always pushing you to go a little bit further and a little bit faster. And there's value in that, except when it is hurting you, when it is compromising your mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual well-being and your financial well-being. And so when it's 10 o'clock at night and this pusher is pushing you to get something done because it believes it needs to get done, and it's mad at the procrastinator part, we won't even go there. It's mad at the procrastinator part because it's waited so long to get this done. It's going to push you. And if you don't feel good, it's still going to push you. And if it's taking time away from your kids, it's still going to push you. You've got to understand the part and where it is and meet it so that you can feel relief. You got to do the healing work. Now let's go to the people pleaser. So the people pleaser, many people have, and this is the part that says, I'm not okay unless someone else is okay. And what I mean by that is, as long as I'm serving someone else, or as long as I'm doing something for someone else, then I'll see my value. And maybe even I'm going to give and give and give of myself until I feel like they see my value, or until I feel like I've given so much that they must see my value. Both of these parts, if you can see the underlying effect, come from this lack of unworthiness, this lack of worthiness, and this lack of intrinsic value, deservingness, and enoughness. But if we're being really serious, and this is what I teach, is that at the core, the true fear is that we're alone, or that we will end up alone. So we do things to show our worthiness, or to show our enoughness, or to prove our value, or to prove our deservingness. So this people pleaser, she's going to please. She's not going to cause conflict because she fears that she's going to be alone, or that she may end up alone. She's not going to have that difficult discussion. Or if she is, then it's going to take that pusher to push her in order to have that discussion. She's going to avoid the difficult situations, the difficult conversations to keep the peace. Now, I also teach that people pleasing, I have a different philosophy on people pleasing. It's not the same as what other people state. And because I didn't really align with what people pleasing was per se, like I didn't align with the definition of what I thought people pleasing was. But here's how I define people pleasing. It is our relentless endeavor to validate our worth by doing for others. I'm going to say that again. It is our relentless endeavor to validate our worth by doing for others. So this is often a quest for recognition, where we don't give the recognition that we don't give ourselves. And the feelings that are going to come of this are resentment, irritation, guilt, and shame. Honoring these feelings is key. We need to understand where they're coming from, where they're frozen in time, and how they're behaving, and ultimately love them. So, if you're interested in learning more about the people-pleasing and about the achiever or the pusher, I talk a lot about parts in my book, Reclaim Yourself, which you can find on Amazon, and it's Reclaim Your Space Self with a capital S by Jessica LaMarre, Lamarre. You could go on there and get the book. You can download that. And it talks about perfectionism, it talks about people-pleasing, it talks about productivity, and the impacts to those things. All right, well, until next time, have a good day.